Hello, everyone. Welcome to the broadcast. Today we're going to be continuing our coding project. We might get to the walls again. I have some thoughts on how we might do that. But, I might get distracted by something else, as is tradition. We'll see. We'll see how that turns out. Before we get too much further, check in with the kitties. You could see Ember walking off the side of the desk there. She's trying to decide if she wants to sit with me or not. She is being indecisive. She has chosen not to. Sky was briefly visible on the side table, the one that Ember's on now. He is getting a snack. Molly is in Ember's spot, probably why Ember is kind of antsy there. Then Mason and Sammy on the bed. There we go. Sherbet is in the cat carrier that I used to take them to the vet and whatnot. When it is not being used as a transport method, it is one of Sherbet's favorite beds. Occasionally Sky will go in there, but it is pretty much exclusively Sherbet. It's also it is kind of a, I don't really know ultimately. It's a box. There's mesh windows in it, and the front of it has it's kind of a zipper mesh door on it, and the zipper is largely undone, so it's kind of a curtain. So I'm guessing it has the I'm hiding in a box, as well as I have camo nets kind of vibe for him. Ember getting a drink. It can be fun looking at watching cats drink, especially when there's like a fountain or a dripping faucet, that kind of thing, because a lot of cats have really different interactions with water. Can be comical seeing those differences. Because despite the stereotypes, there are some cats that really like water. They'll use it either to bathe with, they sometimes just have odd drinking habits as far as how they interact with it. I've seen cats that the primary way that they drink from the fountain is to drink from the spot directly beneath the fountain, resulting in it splashing over their head. So the layout of this is altered slightly. Because of where the food camera is, and there are some variations of it. But if you're on widescreen view, which you are, for widescreen, if I look up, that's directly across from the camera. Where Molly is straight ahead of me, so up. To the right is next to my mouse, next to my right hand. Left and behind me is the upper left corner, where the cat tree is. Past that, still on the left, is where that bed is. Then behind that further is where the play area is. Extending further around, so it's not really behind me, it's kind of behind me and to the right is where the food is. That's directly beneath me. Then rotating further around from that food dish, kind of along that wall, we have the shelf one, which is primarily where you'll sometimes see Sammy. And then across from that, and on my right, physically on my right and on the right in the camera, is that. Rex, Jay, and anyone else on any of the other streams that is watching. Or myself, it hardly matters. But coding day. So like I said, plan is maybe getting to walls. maybe. We'll see how that turns out. Under our current model, walls are probably going to be 4 kind of pseudo entities that are part of a room. And their general behavior, well, minimum of 4, but their general behavior patterns will be, if I get collided with, I will shove an entity past a particular boundary. So if the wall is sitting on, let's say, the 5 line, and it is a upper wall, so it will try to push you below the 5 line. How far it pushes and how we do the adjustment, that's math territory. Rax, we're making a game. We're working on a game. So that's our C# IDE. We're using Godot. We just have the current iteration of the player character and some of the weaponries, some of them. Kind of like a Bullet Heaven game. Kind of like a Bullet Heaven game. So let's see. One of my thoughts for today is to actually shift from this sort of static song and dance to being a dependency injection model. I'll have to pull up a reference to get it up and running, and I might need to download a package real quick for it. But the difference would be, instead of having this static where each of the services essentially declares itself, I go in one of these static slots when you instantiate it, and that we would retrieve it from the startup resource. So the pattern is get the startup resource, instantiate one of these, which causes it to come into existence, which causes it to load itself into services. We make this an auto load node in Godot. We pin it up there in the system, and we create that services object. We'll need to make sure that we can properly retrieve it, but that would let us do things like better control the instantiation of these and have a cleaner way to get them in code than we currently do. Not a super high priority because it will end up being very similar, but longer term, it's a cleaner pattern than what we're currently doing. There's hoops that we're jumping through here. Now, bonus, if I can put a type here, actually. So, I wonder if we can. Public type test. And that is an export. And we look over on the Godot side. We load up our project. Loading. Default startup resource. Build the project. Doesn't like it. Okay. Had to check. That's okay. Because if we move to the pattern that I'm talking about, pretty much all of this doesn't need to be part of the resource. We can leave this kind of thing in here as sort of settings for now. Because these kind of propagate throughout the system, but act as just constant values that I might need to tweak. These could just be constants, but putting it here makes it so that I can just go into the resource and mess with it. But again, could be a constant. So do I want to do that? I kind of do. Let me riffle around in some web pages here. I had a source for it. Is my desk in the middle of the room? It's technically in a corner. Like the left side is near the wall, and there's technically room to move around and mess with cables behind it. You have to be kind of careful, and there's a lot of surveillance poles around. Can be tricky. No. And insane injection. It's a good example that somebody had set up here. Set up as a singleton. They call resolve on it. It's fine. Yeah. Okay. All right. How do I get? Might be built in at this point. There's always a looking for an official one. Okay. Let's see, what's it called? Because it used to be this. Nope. Nope. All right, let's look for you again. And see. No. Where do you live? Whether they will ever do that. Yeah, for a lot of these though, there's a reason that I control like my computer name and file names and the like. I am paranoid. Should have closed that. That one. At library. Help. Tell me the package that you're using for this. Don't want to go through host application. Let me see if I can use that. Sorry if you're staring at a blank screen. Here, look, cats. There's got to be a way to find that. This is truth. This is truth. There's got to be a way to find this. I'm looking through code packages here. It depends on the cat, Jay. So a lot of cats, just like with dogs, you usually have let's call it two categories: grazers and gorgers. So grazers are, I'm feeling hungry, I will eat a little bit. I now no longer feel hungry, I move on. So they like to have food available, but they'll only eat what they want/need. Then you have gorgers who will, if food is present, they will eat it. So these are the ones that you have to very carefully portion control, because otherwise they'll just stuff themselves. Happily, none of mine fall into that category. A couple will run over to look and might take a nibble, but they don't like wipe out the bowl. So for mine, it's pretty common that there's food left. And they actually get kind of upset if there is not food available, because that usually means they came to look for food and there was none. All right. Where are you hiding? Oh, no, I don't need that. Just need the dependency injection extension, but where to get? Be a particular window for that. Yeah. Go. Come on. There you are. I was looking in the wrong package manager. Loading and done and close, and we're back. Yay! Oh, but not this one. Services. So again, all of these things, we're going to set this up as if it's a node. Technically progress, Jay. Technically progress. And technically progress is still progress. This is going to break a whole lot of things. Using... Ah, okay. Apparently, if it extends from node, it must be considered partial. Neat. Okay. Then I'm going to say instance is equal to this. We might be able to just put that in the constructor, though. Yes. This is, as soon as one of these exists, it is the one. Mm. You don't have to put brackets around that kind of thing, but I don't like implicit indentation like that, or flow control, because it's easy to accidentally break. If you put something in the wrong order, suddenly it's no longer under the if, and it's not part of the if. The thing that you put preceding it is now part of the if, even if you don't want it to be. Whereas if you put the brackets, you've got the brackets. Put it inside the brackets, it's under the ifs level of it. There's a name for that. There's a name for essentially the contextual instancing here, where I can declare variables inside the if that only live inside of the if, and they have access to things that are defined outside of the if. But things outside the if don't have access to what's inside the if. That is especially the case. Closure. There you go. If you create a method, at the time the method is created, sometimes, depends on the language, I know in JavaScript this is true, but depends on how the language does this, is variables that were in existence at the time the closure was created are available in different ways. The best way to deal with that is to not do anything with it. Do not assume that a variable exists outside of the immediate locals of the closure if you can avoid it. Well, the ones available from within the closure itself or globally. Otherwise, there shall be problems. Okay, so ready, we can go through and we can load up our services. All of these are packed scenes. These are things that exist as packed scenes currently, but they don't need to. So we need a, what is it called? Not you. We need AI service provider. So now in our ready, this is where we're going to be messing with this stuff. This is the one that gets loaded to the tree. I think we should be able to do it in this order. We need a service collection. This is where my naming conventions are potentially a problem. Is there a way that we need to do that? No, okay, it's a variable. Is services.build service provider, and services is a service collection. This is okay syntax. This is perfectly fine. They are declaring it as a var. And shortly before it in the code, they're saying this is what it is by newing it. That's okay. I don't like doing that. If I want a service collection, I declare I want a service collection. If I'm fine with it just being a service provider, something that implements this interface, I say that explicitly. Because then if something changes about this new, then I have a clean error case, because it will point to this. Hey there, Drew. That is, if services, let's say if it's provider, if this build service provider no longer the result no longer implements iService provider, I get an error right here. This is where the problem would be. You tried to put something that isn't an iService provider into a slot that only fits iService provider. If this was a var, we wouldn't get that error because it would be that thing. We would get the error here when I try to use it because there is like no such method. If it was a var, it's just going to say, yeah, sure, whatever. You know? I'm gonna call you service collection. Collection with an X. Extreme coding. Okay, so then it's going to be service collection. Add. And it will be all singletons. How was the ending of the game? It was pretty solid. We ran for the entirety of the thing. For a moment, I was concerned that they were going to try to pull off a, quote unquote happy conclusion for one of the characters, one or the other of the characters, and there's not really a good way that they could do that. It just wouldn't work. Because the relationship and both of the people involved in it had issues that would make a further relationship or a one-sided this person was right end to the relationship bad, unfulfilling, it would not be a good lesson at the end. It wouldn't be a good window into humanity if the writer had tried to take a side during that. Clearly, our POV character is Lena, and there is often people will assume that the POV character is in the right in a lot of these. But both of the characters had their issues that would have made we either get them back together or one of these people was ultimately right and the other one was wrong, and it's good that they are the one that rejected the other or something like that. Both of those not good, because a huge part of that was relationship dynamics and health, as well as coping. And the dynamic was not great by any stretch. The coping mechanisms were incompatible. So the actions that take place show you the issues that both of the people had in dealing with that grief, whether it was the grief of the other or their own grief, or their own way of handling difficult circumstances. You know, Sebastian was a hyper-dependent individual and had trouble coping, had trouble like functioning without somebody to cling to, and in particular, their core dependency was their mother in that regard. So losing their mother and then having a conflict related to that with their other, dependency relationship, having that conflict associated with that caused them to break down, and all of their coping mechanisms after that ended up being dangerous / unhealthy. You had somebody whose coping mechanism was effectively don't, the bottle it up type. And our primary view into the impact that had was not what it did to Lena in particular, but it was how she interacted with Sebastian's coping, which was to essentially say, suck it up and let's move on. Not in so many words, but that's how it ended up being. The come on, you need to get over this now. And he couldn't. There is a moment in that where a healthy disengage could have happened, even a positive disengage. But that was not done. Exactly. Not only so in a lesser sense, these are all of my memories and I keep them in this box and revisit them periodically is sort of benign, but it's on the, like, there's a shadow of how her system operates, and it is explicit in the black box, the box of things that she wants to forget, and she does so by destroying them. The good memories thing reveals the mechanism that she uses for that, and that these are things that are brought out for her to review, for her to revisit at the time. It does create a parallel with the whole self-diving thing. But the destruction of the bad memories is narratively, it follows then that when presented with his intense grief that he can't let go of, or even his anxieties immediately in that period, that it's just, yeah, you could just get rid of those anxieties. Just get rid of them. Shove them in this box. And that's just not how he functioned as an individual. He can't. He clings hard. Okay, should be an add singleton. And it's when we need a particular type. So one of the things that we're going to have to do as we move forward in this is that we change these from being a collision manager, because this never exists by itself. Is that this becomes an interface that other things implement. So a collision manager, we won't need scale here. We're going to leave it in for now, but we won't need scale because that will live somewhere else. We won't need this pattern anymore because by nature of setting them up, the collision manager, whenever you ask for it, will be this one that we create. ready should be set up like this. This should be true. All of these are still valid. They won't be virtuals because they will be things that you have to implement a copy of. I don't know if we'll have to do it that way, but so we would start implementing this because what we're going to say is doesn't need to be an interface, but with this model, it's as long as it implements the collision manager interface. It could be anything as long as it is a collision manager interface for our purposes. It doesn't need to be a node either. And that's another advantage, is for a lot of these things, them not being nodes can be helpful. But in the case of a collision manager, it needs to be. Reading. See. Is it Ame Atheina? Hey there, Ame. Here, let's just remember that we're doing this instead. A node is a Godot thing. A node is part of the tree. And I kind of want to avoid invoking any part of the tree for my services wherever possible. Because again, most of them don't need to be. So how do we do? Oh. I think in the cases like that, it needs to be a particular object and not an interface in this case. Okay, back in we go. Let's see, how many cats can we see right now? 5, okay. And yeah, Sherbet is still in the carrier. So node 2D, node, those kind of things, Jay, those are Godot objects. I can visibly show you that. Rebuild this so it stops complaining. We may get an error here, yep. Interesting. Might have to relaunch this. But here, let's go up to our core. All of these are nodes. In particular, this is just a node. This little gray circle here might be hard to see. And they make a Godot tree. So, close this, go back to 2D. We're going to reopen Godot here. Our selection of Godot is largely arbitrary, Ame. I mean, folks that are already using Unity, I don't in any way begrudge them that. I would say anybody picking up Unity right now, that's not really a great idea. That company has really shown its colors, and I would suggest avoiding them. Unreal Engine, Game Maker, all of those, they all have their own ways of operating. Only thing I would suggest is avoid the mindset that because Unreal Engine is built around providing you with the most powerful tools as far as like graphics development and all of that, that you consider that the best and immediately default to it, because it adds an extra layer of complexity onto some things, as well as contributing to what is ultimately kind of a toxic development mentality. The sort of, you know, real game developers use Unreal Engine and not that little, you know, kiddie pool stuff. Yeah, okay. When it was loaded, it didn't have the package installed, so it didn't know how to use it. This is going to break. This will totally break if I do that. Yep, it's be cognizant of what each one grants you and how you get to how you utilize it. Yeah, if we tried to do that, it would break because this is a node and some of it would rely on ready. It's not a keyed singleton. What do we do with that? We don't need you. Just add a singleton, the type, and what the thing you're looking for, and the thing to give. Okay. Then we're also going to have a method here. We'll just use that same pattern. It's kind of a tired reference, but I feel like it's still a very powerful lesson for people to learn as far as development. Is, to my understanding, and I think it's this one, is Undertale was written in, I believe, Game Maker by somebody who was very much not familiar with programming when they set out to do it. Like, the code for Undertale is notoriously bad. But it's still a game. It is still a finished game, and it is still a wildly popular and beloved game. Yes, I believe the example that people generally trot out is that every piece of dialogue in Undertale is in one giant switch statement that checks for things like this room, this variable, that kind of thing. You know, if this, 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 and this, okay? Else if this, 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 and this. So collection.add singleton, and we're looking for a startup resource. It needs to be service is a class. No. We'll just do comma, open parens, startup resource. Comma, startup resource. Is it explicitly a new one? It's like type and type when it's those. That. I mean, at least on the musician side and like delivery of emotion in scenes, I would kind of put Toby Fox in kind of genius dev territory. Like, Not really. Genius is kind of a loaded term, but excellent developer territory. I really enjoy sprite art, Ame. I think that's part of what is the reason that I'm using it. Service implementation. Okay, so we should be able to do startup resource, comma, startup resource. Is there a nuance to that? Because we are in our namespace. Undertale is very simple and effective at what it does. This is not some sort of like massively intellectually deep exercise, but Undertale has a message and some nuanced concepts to it that it does very, very well. The characters are fun, the interactions are a ton of fun, and the meta elements of the game are really cool. You add to that excellent music and some good art, and you're set. Why can I not do it that way? Because we are specifying... Does it have to be an interface is the thing. Is it like expressly an interface that it must be? That's a very weird statement. Oh. do. Copy. Paste. No, there is no explicit conversion from a resource to a resource. General vibe. Let me see if this is still working. Did I break it? Still working. Okay. General gameplay elements, think like Vampire Survivors. So you have a series of weapons, they auto-fire, enemies converge, you want them to go away. Still some collision nuance that I don't like. The collision box of the mouse is actually further back than you would think, and smaller. I need to adjust that. But there are going to be a couple of elements. I'm looking at a sort of brawler combat flow. So this scene, this room, that kind of thing, has these enemy spawn points in it, whether they appear immediately or maybe after X seconds, maybe after this spawn point goes away, another one activates, that kind of stuff. So you go kind of room to room, whether they be, outside on the street is a room, or in the forest, or inside a department store. Upgrade-wise, you get basic weapons, but instead of your Vampire Survivors style level them up, we're going more for things like Noida, Magicraft, Bioprototype, where you get upgrades for the weapons. So instead of one at a time, now it fires 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. In the background, it's not actually. It's there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors happening during that process. Which is, the mouse has base behaviors, and then everything after it has behaviors or adds to those behaviors. So I can do things like the mouse fires in a burst of 3 and can penetrate one target. It should be able to survive a target now. So you'll see the mouse hit something and it keeps going. Again, in the background, it's not that it's actually piercing the target. It has a health point that says, yeah, I know I got hit, but not really. It says that doesn't actually count as far as hits. I'll ignore that one. But that's where we're working on this. If you notice that the stream titles have numbers at the end of them, that is essentially the stream number in which I have been working on this. We don't work extensively on it. Hack, choke, sorry. We don't put as much work as I would sometimes like into the project, but you know, here we are. But it's a fun experience. We all learn together, you know? This is not really how we want it to be. This is different. The whole concept of the startup resource largely goes away in this model. If it's not apparent, the whole I might veer off into the weeds and do something completely unrelated to walls, that's happening right now. Okay, so we don't worry about startup resource. That's not actually what we want to do. But we're going to keep that there just as kind of like a template for the moment. So let's say I want a catalog. This is where we get into the territory that I want to start changing the naming here. So this is not... This need not be a node at this point, because it does nothing with node. Do I consistently stream, or is there a schedule? No, and sort of. So the goal is, the thing that I strive for is that it's Tuesday through Thursday and Saturday and Sunday at 4 p.m. US Central is where I want to definitely stream. As far as the content of those streams, up in the air. And I may still decide on Monday and Friday, but real world circumstances sometimes interfere, whether it is me or outside influence. Hey there, Lunar. No mutated food level yet. Okay, so base catalog is not a catalog. It implements catalog. So this is going to be our first make everything explode. So this is an I catalog. And instead of it being an abstract partial class, it is an interface. And it does not extend node. And it need not have this. Okay, as of right now, everything is super broken. Well, thank you, Ami. Okay, so to facilitate that, I do, streams on Twitch. I don't put the schedule on Twitch because it is fiddly. I could, but as far as practical schedule, what you can see is when I post the schedule stream to YouTube, that will be when I'm planning to have the stream and what it is. I will often talk on the Discord about what I'm planning to do in the near future. Longer term, if I manage to get my act together once more, I will be posting actual schedules. But, life being what it is. Okay, we have this. Now I'm going to look at base catalog, and we're going to determine just how many things exploded. Base catalog. This implements iCatalog. It's implemented, but it says... Yeah. Okay. This is just a direct implementation, so it is no longer an override. Yes. Okay, so this is one of those "a subtle thing happened" markers. Previously, and let's rename this file, interface catalog. Do you have to use an I in the prefix? No, it's actually an old naming convention, but it's still a good one. So the prefix of I means it's an interface. It defines a series of variables and methods that anything that implements it must have. So if I look at catalog, anything that is to be considered a catalog must have the following things. All right, Jay, thanks for joining us. Build, we see what we broke. Another reason that I want to incorporate this interface pattern and the dependency injection pattern is it becomes a lot easier to set up integration and unit tests and all of the kind of shades in between. Actual atomic unit tests can be a bit of a hassle to create, period. Are there ways to do it? Absolutely. There are markers for like making interfaces that have private or protected values be exposed during tests. But even doing that, though, that can be dangerous because it creates an explicit it means the test assumes how things work on the inside, not their results. Because the test should care about the in and the out, and the consequences of the in and the out, not what happens in between those things. Anyhow, so now when we go into our services, and we're going to close everything but services at the moment. Should be able to close other, there we go. Now we go into services, which is nearby. So just services, types of services. I define that up here. I define that up here. Boy, that's intuitive. Hello, Molly. Are you done toasting? Yes, hello. Yeah. You are over toasted, aren't you? Several of the cat cameras, you can see that there is like a little bevel on the right side of the cat camera there. That is actually a low output heating pad. They're a design that is meant to be used it's meant to be used outdoor in harsh weather conditions. So it is pretty rugged and you don't have to worry about it running pretty much forever. I mean, it's a power draw, but safety-wise, it is built to be, you just leave it running outside. So I have several of those laying around. We do see a Twitch ad break has begun. So now with catalog here, whenever I ask for an iCatalog, I'm going to give it a base catalog. And in base catalog, we have load, which is read from file. We have our constructor, which builds out all the bits. Implement all of our methods here. That should be correct. Then we are going to very explicitly nuke some of these things. So then game is all the way up here, and I should make an interface for this. Able to get those dealt with. Events do we have? Time pass, start, end. Subscribe to internal events. Is there anything that is absolutely necessary for it? No, a game should just be a game object. I may come up with an interface that's for it, but for now, game is game. Welcome back. I do try to have those on the hour. I ask for a game. Give me game. Give me the ability to type properly. In my defense, I'm typing properly around a chubby cat. I am an intermediate cooldown process for Molly. Is she will often be laying on a heating pad, toasting, and then she will crawl across my soundboard and mess with all the dials. Then she will crawl into my lap and block the camera repeatedly, which is why my tracking is freezing now and again. And then lay on my lap and want very particular types of pets and attention. Her very particular is nearly a two-hand operation. But she is a infrequent cat. The added trickiness with Molly is that she is an electrostatic discharge generator. One stroke of her fur, and it will generate enough static for some of it to stand on end and to potentially draw an arc when you touch electronics. So I have to remember to periodically ground myself when interacting with Molly. Disgruntled Ember. Yeah. So if we ask for a game, we're going to get game. Then we remove game. We ask for... I will have to come up with some very particular patterns. Random is one of them. And I might be able to do a little bit of song and dance with this. I want a unified random. Hey, you. So there's Sherbet passing through, carefully crossing over Ember, and arriving at keyboard. Well, across from the keyboard. There's Sherbet. He is one of the tan and white boys. Okay, now we need Entity Manager. And we go down to Entity Manager, and we give it the same treatment as... Oh, actually... Okay, first, add dependency. Add that. Then we go into services. Oof. Haven't really done anything with that. We're doing some source control here. I am proceeding through the entirety of the China shop with a ball peen hammer right now. So I expect all of the things to be breaking in sequence here. Where is our entity manager? Here we go. You are an interface entity manager. Cannot extend node in that case. Oof. Does it actually need a ready? These are implementations. Well, it begins. don't need that. We only need game as long as it takes to add the methods to it. So we have, oof. That's just in this file, though. Okay, how do we do? How do we do? There is no ready. Because we can't really do this. These are all assumptions that I'm making. These are things that would be convenient for all entity managers to do. But that's not necessarily how they would do them. Okay. Refactoring go. Changes to that kind of thing. Yep. We don't ever get entity by ID anymore. We have very firmly moved away from that pattern. That is definitely a cleanup vector there. So in this case, an entity manager need not be a node. These are specific to the implementation. So when we create one of these, that's when we're going to do all of this. Which won't work because it's not finished yet, but... So this is services, game is equal to services. We need a method for that. Turns a type, and it will be resolve or type, and we do type where not null. This is service provider. It doesn't help that that is static. This will happen once during the ready. That's okay. Okay, so this lets us say I want one of these. So then over here, we say services.resolve. We could just use static methods because it is very static. And this should only happen once. So this is a static. I don't need this. Which means for this, each execution is unique. Yeah. Okay, so at construction, we are building all of these things. This needs to be a node because it needs to be auto-loaded for us to do this correctly. In theory, it doesn't actually need to be a node because as soon as I try, so this is going to be a static. As soon as I try to invoke this, we are going to get this, which will cause everything else to happen. I don't need node. Welcome back. I don't need node because everything is static. variables we need. Save everything, close out, open up. That is a common thing, you know, it often, you know, it's generally called introverted, but introvert, extrovert are very broad categories that get oversimplified, but, you know, the idea is there. Public static. So as soon as this gets called, this is going to happen, which is going to set up our service collection, where we will try to get the thing we need. Okay. So now in my entity manager, yes, it's, for lack of a better way to put it, introvert and extrovert are parts of a spectrum. And in fact, all spectrums are often viewed as a line, a two-dimensional construct, but it is effectively more of a, like a cube, a point in a cube, or more complex. There are variables aplenty. And effectively, the social battery is just one of those variables. The how quickly do you top up, you know? In theory, we should actually just be able to do this. Resolve this gives me a game object, and then I can say game.timePassed. And because this is a singleton, this is an entity manager, so these are not overrides, because the start step, end step stuff is not fundamental. So if we go into Entity Manager, this is by default, all these methods would do is relay it. But again, this is a fundamental difference. So we're looking for our game functions here. So here's when the game gets its start step. We go through and all the way down to here, So we get our start step where we're going to do start step invoke. Entity manager has an event called start step. Yeah, don't care about that. Oh, okay. Go into our messages. So we're going to look at I emits start step. It has a start step event called start step. So if it emits start step, it has a start step message. Okay, noteworthy. So I can just say nope. Same with these. It has its own entity added. Game time passed only exists because we want it to. Which means it's part of base manager here. We're going to put it after start step just to keep the assumed flow here. Implements entity manager, which means its time passed method is invoked, but we don't have it here. So, okay, we need these because they're part of the interface. We need a game end step, which is just this. Time passed end step. Okay, so start, time passes, end step. Doesn't need a ready, because it need not be a node. So raise entity added. When does this get called? This never gets called. It's protected as well. Okay, so in Entity Manager, we don't need that. Okay, so we now move my foot around, and Molly likes to be right below my feet under the chair. So occasionally I have to kind of roll her out of the way with my feet before I move the chair. But additionally, if I shuffle my feet, sometimes she gets poked. For the most part, sometimes when I get up and walk around, I am surrounded by a flock. Nexus of the colony, you know? Okay. So then in our services, we say add singleton. We look for an I entity manager. We're going to get base entity manager. Doing this allows us to create kind of a testing version of this. This may need, like, this part of the structure may need to change. Check something here. Private set. I'm going to want to look at this for how we set up the instance. Like, I may come up with a method for saying, no, this is an override to your types. But for our purposes, we'll stick with this for now. Real quickly, we're going to take a little break. I got to get up and move around, do some stretches and such, and then I will return. And we're back. Get beverage. Discharge static. There's entity manager, so we're going to get rid of entity manager here. So catalog is equal to services.resolve. So take that. We will need it again. That is not that is something I've seen. One of the things that I really enjoy in doing this is hearing that other people see some of this and say, you know what, I can do that kind of thing too, and start their own projects. Doesn't matter if it ultimately doesn't go anywhere or how fast you move. The whole stream is a mutual learning experience. Again, we all learn together. Catalog is equal to services.resolve catalog to catalog get catalogable. That. It's creative expression, you know? These. It's a good theme. One of the things, like, I wouldn't have been able to hear it initially, but seeing, like, music scholars go through Toby Fox's work and point out some of the things that make the songs have their sort of impact is really, like, highly technical use of musical structure. In the flow of notes, in repeated themes, that kind of stuff. resolve catalogable catalog. Oh, no. Entity manager is equal to resolve entity manager resolve. Now, some of these can be preserved. Where during our construction we can do it. Can we get away with this? This can only happen once. I don't need to store that. There. But this is a good thought, or at least a good thing to consider, is how often am I doing this? If I'm repeatedly doing it, then I should probably store it off and save effort. They are often small considerations. But like this one is going to say, if I get a collision, remove the entity. But it is remove self. So again, only ever going to happen once. Or so few times that it's okay for that to happen. Terraria is fun to revisit now and again. Entity managers, so we might as well carry that forward. So this is kill target, which we don't really use. The farthest I've gotten in vanilla Terraria is Moonlord, and I haven't committed the time and whatnot to defeat Moonlord. The most recent times I've replayed it has been like super heavily modded. Completely different experience at that point. Okay, so this one should have this in it. Because it can repeatedly do this. I started playing way back when I started playing way back when like Wall of Flesh was endgame territory. Like that was pretty much it. I think potentially before Wall of Flesh was added. So I have become increasingly knowledgeable about how to deal with Wall of Flesh. Okay, let's see. In a remove heart message. Again, this can happen repeatedly, this part, since it's especially in a for each. So, it'd be a better way to go about this part, but such is life. No, that's catalog. My catalog. Catalog. Okay. It's in the copy. So at the moment, we only need to do this once. The catalog. Nice. Getting there. Whenever we process message, if we're not initialized, we will be initialized and we may need to copy the entity. But we're going to use it into Entity Manager in numerous other scenarios. I'm going to have to revisit some of the things that I've just changed. Entity Manager. My Entity Manager. We're looking for the ones where I'm declaring it as a member level variable. And where I might not be setting its access level. Okay, good. Catalog, Entity Manager, and it is in process message pretty high up, so. Protected. Entity Manager is equal to services resolve. So then we hop down to here and we can say catalog, Entity Manager, Entity Manager, just so. Multiplier is absolutely going to want to have catalog. cat. Catalog. Catalog, and then in the same pane, we'll get rid of you and you. Oop. Same thing, so protected entity manager. Entity manager is equal to services dot resolve entity manager. Then in entity manager, we can do this. This part, which will be usable no matter. Need that. Game is a node. So do that. Like, everybody covers creative endeavors in a different way, you know? And that is, like, that is a core one of them there. That is... Yeah, inventory is another one that'll have to change. But how you interact with the things that you do as hobbies, as profession, that kind of thing. There's just lots of different ways of thinking that end up being the same sort of thing, you know? Like, you're saying it's like, oh, but, you know, I can't hear the rest of the song if you stop in the middle. For me, it's things like, if I don't have a goal that I can see, like, here are some things I could do and I can start them right now, let's go. If I don't have that, I get kind of paralyzed. Hello, Sky. There is food in the bowl, sir. So that's not the issue. Sky's a troublemaker. You gotta keep an eye on him. Figure out what he's up to. But that is one thing. Cats like to nap a lot. I mean, they're small ambush predators, so they conserve their energy. That is also the reason that cats get zoomies, is that they have a lot of energy that just sometimes needs to be discharged. Varies individual to individual, but that's why you will see those just, I need to run off energy right now, let's go. But often the like, I'm gonna go off and nap nearby is perceived as the animal is antisocial. But cat behavior and body language, if the cat is sleeping within line of sight of you, like you can turn and see the cat sleeping, that is generally the cat saying, I love and trust you. At the very least, I trust you greatly. Because that is the cat essentially removing all of its defenses in the presence of a larger creature. Similarly, that's why the whole, the cat's belly is a trap. you know, if you rub the belly, they're going to bear trap, claw, and bite you. Is a cat exposing its belly is another gesture of trust. It's very similar to when dogs do that, but with cats, their belly is often even more vulnerable. Again, they're a small predator. So if you touch a cat's belly after it exposes that to you, it can be kind of a violation. It is, I said I trusted you, and immediately you broke my trust. Time for biting. Now, sometimes it can just be like, no, don't touch my belly. I don't like that. And there are some cats that love belly rubs. Learn at your own peril. Never need that elsewhere. Collision Manager we might have to revisit for this purpose, but time flies. Our last stream was a game called Mind Diver, and there were a couple like, oh, you know, 2 hours have passed. I didn't realize we had gone this long. That's a fun place to get into. That just sort of like almost trance-like state when you're doing something where time can just flow because you're having, it's either you're having such a good time and or it's so mentally engaging for you. And that's not like intensive. It's not like you're concentrating hard, but it's that your mind can just do. It's a thing that just happens and keeps happening. That is the kind of statement that I could easily have ended with, man. Your brain just does, man. Okay, we use Entity Manager, we use Catalog. Yeah, okay, we should get Entity Manager and Catalog. We can just get the game step. Services, Solve, Entity Manager. Did. Entity Manager, Entity Manager, Catalog. Not averse to just affected game. That there's a risk to doing this. Solve game. Yeah, time just goes, time just flows. It's sometimes it's fun, sometimes it can be very disconcerting. Sometimes you get that, wait, what day is it? Kind of feeling if you wake up from a nap or you've just been locked in on something. Sometimes you get reminded of how much time has passed since you looked into a thing. One of my favorites is still seeing engagement bait posts on things like Twitter and Blue Sky, where it'll be like, reply with the first game controller you remember using. And I'll look at it, and the first one will be like a Wavebird or a PS2 controller, like a DualShock, and I die a little inside. It's that, oh, I guess I'll turn to dust now. I actually like this pattern a lot better, where I set up a kind of a services section. Know what that word was supposed to be. Where I set up a services section and I say, I want all of these things. This also needs an entity manager. Like that, because we haven't used it yet, is equal to services resolve entity manager. So then we can go down to these spots and say, game. Down here, we also need the catalog. Just so. Same with this. Good. Game underscore game is equal to services. Resolve game. I want to make a game. That's the goal. I want to make a game and publish it on a platform. I'm going to start with Steam, most likely. Is it going to be successful? Is it going to be great? I want it to be, and I want it to be, but the initial goal is to complete it to enough of my satisfaction and publish it. That's goal one. Would I feel sad if it's a breakout success and I make lots of money? No. But that's not the goal. That is not our immediate steps, you know? And hey there, Tess. And it is a solid thing to do with any hobby. You want to learn to play an instrument. You want to learn a new language. Want to make a game. Want to be better at, you know, digital art. The thing to do is do it. Don't look at it and say, "Oh, I need to take these classes and I need to do all of this stuff." Just do. Start. Might you take classes in the future? Yes. Might you watch YouTube videos and practice? Might you get new equipment as you go? Yes. But if you just start, you'll start to get a grasp for what you're doing. coding isn't any different. Game engines aren't any different. We live in an age where information is quite literally at our fingertips. So many people have access to smartphones. If they don't, computers and internet. That is becoming increasingly pervasive to the point where entire generations of people are like, as of right now, even just as of right now, there are people that are growing up that have been in an age where smartphones have been around for decades and that they have grown up using them. It is part of their general life. So look up videos, learn from what others have done. It's all out there, you know? It's Reddit. Burnout maintenance is a skill in and of itself. Learning to understand when you're getting tired of something, and knowing if and when you can step back. Like, you might be burning out on your job, but you might not have an option right now, but recognizing that you are is a indicator that, hey, I should probably start looking into some different options for money because this is bad for me. And the same way, let's say you have like a game that you really love and you've been working really hard on it. You know, Hollow Knight, Elden Ring, the ones that are like really skill-based or something like that. And you just can't beat something and it's starting to be a chore. It's starting to make you angry. And at that point, it's set the controller down and just walk away. It's fine to come back, but do something else for a while. Because if you really love it, you really enjoy it, then you don't want to associate it with anger and frustration. Because then when you play, the mindset when you're coming into it is, okay, it is time for my evening get really upset session. Tass, if you're just joining us, we're in the process of ripping up all the floorboards in order to implement injection. I am not. That is a good disclaimer. I am not a medical professional, a therapist, a doctor, a lawyer. I am none of that. Everything I say is from my own experience in life. Things I've encountered, things I've heard, things I've done. If you ever feel that you need medical assistance, whether it is physical, mental, anything like that, then I would absolutely encourage you to find resources. There are hotlines, there are web pages that will direct you to good sources of help. Whether, again, that be, you know, dial 911, you screwball, or it is like find a therapist in your area under your insurance program or similar. Just like in like this very practical case of, if I don't know how to start coding something, I can look it up. It's, if you think you need help, seek help from people that can actually provide it. You should never be ashamed of that kind of thing. We are still in map render, okay. What's a good pattern for this task? I'm going to show you what I've been doing. And I can always backtrack on this, but we need game. So game is equal to services resolve game. So if I need one of my services right now, I'm either putting it in a method that is like going to happen once in the lifespan of an object, or I'm storing it off as a thing if I might be using it more frequently. This is not a good place to put this, but we'll put it here for now. So that as soon as the object is initialized, we get our reference that we're going to be using. Services is still a static. So as soon as one of these touch it, it's going to set up the service provider structure in it and have everything ready to go. Like I said, I'm ripping all of these bits out as we go and setting up like this. If you need a catalog, you're going to get this type. If you need an entity manager, you're going to get this type. There's one instance of each of them. In theory, we could make this a transient. Yeah, we may still end up doing that and just saying, give me this. So we're either storing references off all over the place, which can lead to a variable management issue, or we're performing this operation, which should just be this should just be like a dictionary. When I do resolve, it should likely just be saying, what type did you ask for? Okay, it's this one. Whether it is the one I already have or one that I'm going to new and give you. Okay. We'll do our loops here. Is like, for a lot of things, this is what they need game for from services is, I want this message that game emits. Catalog entity manager right here. So we're always going to need a catalog. Catalog is equal to services resolve catalog. Then we're going to need entity manager one way or another. So an entity manager is equal to that. Entity manager here. Get rid of this one and add this one. Yep. The only reason that I haven't got a like central message service is to handle the sequencing. There are some things that won't need that. Like I could probably pull it out of game and have a message handler there to handle the start, middle, end kind of steps. The kind of the game tick that is happening. But some things are still going to have their own, like, I subscribe to this message kind of stuff. Because, like, behaviors have to have it run down the chain with, you know, okay, you took this message, what did you do with it? Kind of stuff. We need an entity manager into catalog. We only use those once. It is each time we do this. That's that. We're just gonna services resolve. Catalog. Okay. This might be apparent. I'm seeing where I can shift. So like game has to be a node for our purposes. It needs to get the tick. And this is where having essentially a tick handler as a service would be useful, is that can just be an object. That is a service that the game pokes and says, hey, new time passed. Hey, or new sequence. Here's the time passed in this sequence kind of thing. Because then, again, they don't need to get the game object. And the game object is very specific to implementation. So that's another target that we can loop back around to. Okay, we use catalog multiple times in this one, so. Log. So, and then there we go. We're going to get the catalog only in this spot, so we'll just do that in place. So catalog and entity manager, each of them used directly. So wow, that's just all of the wrong. Catalog. Okay. I could wrap this in explicit calls, but then I'm just adding functions that become very specific implementations that I have to manage, as opposed to just, I want this now. Entity manager, blah, blah, mutter. I'm gonna need this again in a moment. Should have copied the whole thing, but here we are. Small victories on me. Small victories. Every little thing, you know? Catalog. Surfaces, resolve that. Use the catalog. Here. Slowly. At the moment, all of the initial things are going to be kind of cat toy themed. So right now we have a red laser dot, a wind up mouse, and a ball of yarn as the current set of weapons. In no small part, because these are references to the mod from Noida that we made, the mod for Noida that we made. Gonna need an entity manager anywhere else in this whole... Okay. That. We invoke these, but the only reason that Entity Manager listens to them is that they would have to come into existence. So... this is kind of kludgy, but... just doing this should create that object initially, which puts it in play. So then it latches on to the game object. This is another thing that we could move elsewhere. Actually, we should move this elsewhere. Under this model, you live in game right now. Yes, this should be where all of this happens. Some of these are not going to be relevant. So like Entity Manager doesn't stick around. Map Renderer, Entity Renderer, some of these are nodes. We know they are nodes because they have to exist in space, but some of them are not. So like player state, I think. Well, we'll have to see. Some of these are nodes, and it's the game's responsibility to add them as children. So we'll have to see what each of these is, you know? the actual compiled code. That's not what I want. Why you do this to me? In player state, there we go. Player state is an interface. It extends node. That is probably... Do we ever use that? We do not. Player state need only exist. It's in game. We will get back to that one. Player state need only exist. Map renderer, entity renderer, collision manager. These are all things that... Is player state even a node? Extends player state, and player state okay, player state extends node 2D. Player get player handle message, game time passed. Handles messages. So method for loading players. It gets replies. It does not have any need of being a node. We are changing all of the things at once. So all of the things. Set up time passed. We don't really use it anywhere else. So we can just say this. Player state is no longer a node. We don't care about it being added as a child inventory. Game inventory, okay. That is one of these. Inventory is a node 2D. Has time passed. Actually generates the stuff. It is the source of information for the actual inventory. Catalog. It has a ready, during which it goes through and it structures. Okay, right now that's a node and we're not going to touch it. There's some complexity here that I don't actually want to be there. Okay, so inventory is definitely one of the UI ones. World state is currently a node. Message game time passed. It need not be a node. So much stuff broken. Oh. Game. World state need not be something, so... just doing that makes it exist. As of right now, the singleton exists. Some of this is important for it to exist right away, but I might be able to dodge some of that concern. We'll have to look and see, because the entity manager doesn't need to exist. Well, I'm sorry. These need to exist so that they can wire up to all of the other things. Like, I need to have an entity manager. I need to have these things. They are available, but they must come into existence as part of the loop. Okay, definitely. So all of these exist in world space, which means they need to be part of a node of some kind. In general, okay, I'm drawing the map, which means I'm putting something in the world, which means I'm in 2D space. So this has to be a node 2D. Node 2D. I'm doing collisions. That's in physical, like Godot physics space. Node 2D. I'm drawing stuff. I'm sorry. I'm drawing stuff here, and indirectly I'm drawing stuff in inventory. Point tracker, which we made some time back, and we have left it on the floor for now. Point tracker is currently a node. But it needed to be. Game. And this will be... This is all still broken. There's a lot of things that are very broken right now. So, A big part of this being broken is that many of these objects don't exist outside of this bubble. So we're going to take you... We're going to take all of these up here. We'll still do our resolution of them in ready. This does make them all persistent. I do need to be cautious about that. Some of these I think I will ultimately change to transient. Things like world state and whatnot are better to just let fall to pieces once nobody is using them anymore. But like catalog should be a true singleton. There's just the one. Because there's no need to have multiple of them or to refresh it. It's actually a waste of time to refresh it. Player state, so world state is equal to that. Change that, but you know. That, here. So we are currently ripping up the floorboards, but there's, you know, I think for the next development stream, we're still going to be in a broken state. Nails everywhere. The main issue is that I'm substantially changing a great deal of the structure, which is making it so it won't actually work like this. And it's not that what I'm doing isn't moving in the right direction, it's that I'm having to make so many changes to make it work this way, and they won't all be done. We're doing a lot of this to try to get the interim in place. Wait a minute. Did it start going there? I don't want the declaration. I want the thing. It is a canvas layer. Okay. We haven't been using this thing. Okay, that actually is a variable, like a child node. Okay. Well, There are constants we can set up for those, but that's also not how input is going to work. Build solution. All right, node render is just subscribing to that event, so solve my entity manager. Manager to services dot resolve. That go up here to that. Catalog and entity manager. Use this catalog and then same here. So many things. Catalog. Catalog goes here. Entity manager goes here. I am focusing in a lot because I'm actually typing sometimes here. As opposed to, programmer hunt and peck, since coding uses weird symbols more frequently. Not a lot of call for, square, angle, and curly brackets and similar in regular typing. Whoops. Catalog. I call it out periodically, but that error that it made right there, where it suggested a thing that would not fit in that return that I have not done anywhere in code, is why, quote, vibe coding is currently not a thing, and I don't expect will be a thing. It is too frequent that really weird mistakes creep into models like that. Your favorite coding language is binary. In that sort of situation, you're probably the actual coding language would be something more like assembly, because binary is just a way to express a number. You know, you have to have at least some level of interpretation to turn it into code. And assembler is very much manipulation of binary data, usually. You know, bit 5 shifted left 3 times, placed into this address kind of stuff. Read also as nightmarish. Can you do cool stuff with assembly? Yes. Should you ever really want to? No. If you find yourself thinking, man, assembly is the thing that we should be doing because that's cool, you're probably wrong. There are use cases for it, and if you want to learn to do it, go for it. But it is also one of those things that is so fine, so easily broken, that if you're thinking about doing it and it's not absolutely necessary and it's not something you want to learn to do, then it is a flex for internet points, and that's really not something that you should, that I think people should ever do. Catalog, services.resolve, catalog goes here. Solve, catalog. This is in a for loop, and there is no no need to repeatedly reinvent the wheel in that loop. Texture, do we need any other? We're in a task.run. This should be okay. Catalog, surfaces dot resolve, catalog. I want to see if I can finish more of these files really quick. Hello, Kyotis. Welcome. Okay. Why? catalog. We are getting there. Solve, catalog. Catalog goes here. Whoops. Fat fingers. We're going to wrap up is trying to hit as many of these as we can. We'll make an interim step save, and then we are going to iterate on this and then start resolving all of the errors that we will have made from this. There are going to be a lot of bits of the code that won't work very shortly. Well, for a bit. They already don't work. Look at all that. Look at all that broken. Oof. Check a couple of things here. There. All that said, I think we are going to wrap up here. Do I like GTA San Andreas? It's okay. A lot of the GTA games, at least as far as I'm concerned, are okay. They're not necessarily like my kind of game, ultimately. But they're certainly not bad. I mean, they're liked for a reason. We'll just do this one last file. Okay. We're going to do an interim save here. Shifting. Oh, that is a terrible commit. Such a bad commit. Okay. We're wrapping up. Need arm stretches, need all kinds of stuff. But we're going to wrap up there for today. Very technical session today. We started moving down the road towards dependency injection. There's further stuff that I want to alter in this regard, but this gets us towards a cleaner, more uniform structure. Well, thank you, Kyotis. It's been a learning experience. For reference, I have not done game development. I have not done development in Godot. I have not done a major project in C# prior to this work. All this stuff we've been doing on the stream is a first for me as well. I do have a programming background, and I've played games all my life, so there is very relevant experience, but it is a learn along with us thing. So never think that just because this stuff looks complicated that it's outside of your own reach. Everybody can get there easily enough. All right, with all that said, I hope you had a good time watching with us today. If you like what you saw and would like to see more, remember to like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff. Those buttons help the channel grow, so please hit them. If you'd like to consider financially supporting the channel, you can do so through platform-specific means like membership subscriptions, bits, super chats, all of that kind of thing, as well as off-platform means that are linked in the link tree, in my video descriptions, and in my Twitch bio. And with that, I hope the rest of your day is good, and I'll see you next time.